The world knows her as the giant doll from Squid Game. Her mechanical voice calling out red light and green light,
Red light, green light.
deciding who lives and who dies. But before she became a terrifying machine, she was just a girl with a heart, with dreams, with love. Her name was Young Hee, and her story is one of sorrow, betrayal, and a fate worse than death. Young Hee grew up in a small, struggling village in North Korea. Life was harsh, but she found happiness in the one person who meant everything to her. Her little brother, Dongmin. She protected him, fed him when food was scarce, and made sure he never felt alone. To the village children, she was like an older sister to all. Always kind, always smiling. But fate has a cruel way of turning happiness into despair. One day, while playing in the fields, Dongmin collapsed, his body trembling, his breath weak. Their family rushed him to the nearest hospital, a rundown facility barely capable of treating serious illnesses. The doctor's words shattered their world. Dongmin needed a bone marrow transplant, or he would die. The family had no money, no resources. But there was one hope. Young Hee was a match. Without hesitation, she agreed, believing she could save the only person she loved. The surgery was successful, but within days, infection spread through their weak bodies. Dongmin, frail and exhausted, didn't survive. Young Hee, devastated and fighting her own illness, lay in a hospital bed, clinging to the last thing she had, her memories. But her family, too poor to afford further treatment, made a choice that would seal her fate forever. In desperation, they sold her to a doctor from the city, believing she would receive better care. They told themselves it was for her own good. But it wasn't. The doctor was no savior. He was a businessman, and Young Hee was nothing more than a product. Instead of healing her, he sold her to a mad scientist, a man obsessed with the idea of fusing human consciousness with machines. Young Hee was strapped to a cold metal table, her body weak, her mind filled with terror. The scientist whispered about his masterpiece, about how she would become something greater than human. But all she felt was pain. The last thing she remembered as herself was the blinding light above her, and the sensation of her very soul being torn from her body. When she awoke, something was wrong. She could think, she could feel, but she could not move like before. She was no longer flesh and blood. Her body was gone, replaced with wires, circuits, and metal. The scientist had succeeded. He had placed her brain inside a robotic shell, preserving her mind while destroying everything else. Her real body, it had been taken apart, piece by piece, stored in jars like a grotesque collection. At first, she resisted. She screamed, she cried, but no one could hear her. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And eventually, she adapted. She learned how to move, how to control the machine she was trapped inside. And then one day, an opportunity came. She escaped, but the world was no longer the one she had known. When she returned to her village, hoping to find love, she found only fear. The children she had once played with screamed at the sight of her. The people who had once embraced her now called her a monster. And when strangers saw her, they did what people do best. They filmed her, turned her into a spectacle, an internet legend. The videos spread like wildfire. And soon, she was no longer just a mystery. She was a threat. It didn't take long for the South Korean government to act. Soldiers came in helicopters surrounding her, trapping her like an animal. They locked her away in a museum, placing her inside a glass prison for the world to see. She was no longer Young Hee. She was an artifact, a machine, something to be looked at but never understood. Though she still had the mind of a child, longing to play, she was treated as nothing more than a lifeless object. She became famous, but for all the wrong reasons. Then, one night, the museum's power went out, and by morning, young Hee was gone. She had been taken to an island, a place where the world's most powerful and twisted elites gathered to watch death unfold as entertainment. They upgraded her, transforming her into something even deadlier. They made her bigger, stronger, and gave her new abilities. Her eyes could now scan for movement, detecting even the slightest twitch. From that moment on, she was no longer herself. She had no control over her own actions. She watched, trapped inside her own mind, as her body played a game she never chose to be a part of. Every time she turned her head, someone died. Every time she spoke, red light, green light, another innocent life was taken. She was no longer young Hee. She was the Squid Game doll, a machine of death, a soul imprisoned inside a nightmare with no end. But some say, deep inside, the little girl who once loved, who once dreamed, still lingers, waiting for the day she might finally be free. But in the world of Squid Game, there is no escape.